Hey guys, we're going to learn about the third factoring method today, factoring trinomials. So there are two methods we already learned. One is, does it have a GCF? So that's the first thing you need to check for in these problems on a test, homework, and all of them today. Then you ask yourself, does it have only two terms? If they are perfect squares or cubes, you use one of the formulas you learned in the last video. If it doesn't have two terms, if it has three terms, you use slide and divide. So look at the first problem. We have 1, 2, 3 terms. So the first thing I check for is, does it have a GCF? And in this case, it does not have a GCF. So then there are two methods that I'm going to teach you. One is trial and error, and one is slide and divide. I'm going to guess most of you are going to like slide and divide better, but there's always a few people who like trial and error better. So I like to teach both. So this is trial and error. What you're basically trying to figure out is what two parentheses will FOIL together to get you that original problem. So I create my two parentheses, and I figure out, all right, what's going to multiply to get me that x squared at the beginning. So I need to figure out what's going to give me this x squared. And so that x squared comes from when I multiply those two positions together. So what multiplies x squared is x and x. Then I've got to figure out what's going to multiply to negative 30. And how you get negative 30 is those two positions multiplied together. But there are many things that could get you negative 30, like 6 and 5, or 15 and 2, or 30 and 1. So that's why it's called trial and error, because you try things and you'll most likely make some errors. So what makes a difference is when you multiply these two together, the blue arrows, it's got to get the middle number, negative 1. So you basically got to figure out, let me try a few things to figure out what can I put in those two numbers can I put there that'll multiply that negative 30, and those two blue arrows will add up to negative 1. So I'm going to pretend like, I don't know, maybe it is 15 and 2. I'll make one of them negative. So that's going to make this first blue arrow on the top negative 2x, and this blue arrow on the bottom 15x. And that will not add up to negative 1x. So that was an error. So I'm going to erase that. Okay. So now I need to actually find the real answer. So the real answer then would be negative 6 and 5. So what should go in both of those places are negative 6 and positive 5. That'll make that top arrow 5x, and that bottom arrow negative 6x, and that adds up to negative 1x. So that takes a little bit more thought. It's like puzzle solving, stuff like that. Slide and divide, I think, is a little bit easier. So how you do slide and divide is that you make an x first, and you take the first number, which in this case, the first number before that x squared is 1, and you multiply by the last number, negative 30. So 1 times negative 30 goes up top, so negative 30. What goes down bottom is the middle number, so in this case it's negative 1. Then you have to figure out, using your brain or calculator, what multiplies to negative 30 and adds to negative 1. So let me show you how to do it on your calculator. So you go to y equals, you put in the top number, negative 30, you divide it by x. Then you hit second graph. And you're going to add across the rows until you get to something that adds to negative 1. So that first one, negative 1 and 30, that does not add to negative 1. 1 and negative 30 doesn't. 2 and negative 15 doesn't. And you just keep going. And then once you get to 5 and negative 6, 5 plus negative 6 is negative 1. So 5 and negative 6 is the magic combo. So then I just go off to the side and I make my parentheses now. I put x at the beginning of both of them because of the x squared. And then I have plus 5 minus 6. So that is the same answer as the one we got with trial and error. They're just in different orders, and that's totally fine. The check, basically, we already did that with the trial and error, so I'm not going to go over that. But that would just be doing the box method or foiling to make sure you get back your original answer. So number 2 does not have, or does have a GCF this time. So the GCF in number 2 is 4. So I divide everything by 4, so I'm left with r squared plus 8ry minus 9y squared. So if you were doing trial and error, what you'd do is you'd first Ignore that original problem. And that 4 that we took out would just go out front. I'm just now going to focus on what's inside the parentheses. So if you're doing trial and error, since there is r squared at the beginning, right here, I'm going to put r's at the beginning of both of these. And since there is a y squared at the end, I put y's at the end of both of these. And then you can figure out what number is going to multiply that 9, -9, and add to that 8. Okay. So you would just try different number combinations like 9 and 1, 3 and 3, until you figure out which one, when you fold it out or did the box method, would get you back r squared plus 8ry minus 9y squared. But I'm going to show you focus more on slide and divide. So I take the first number, which is a 1 in this case, times the last number, -9. So 1 times -9 goes up top, so -9. And then the middle number goes down bottom, 8. So now I would use my calculator. Let me show you that again. Go to y equals, put -9 divided by x, second graph. -1 plus 9, that equals 8. Perfect, that was a quick one. So -1 and 9. So go off to the side and make my parentheses. Now I put my GCF out front, and I have an r squared at the beginning, so I put r's, and I put -1 and plus 9, the two numbers we just found. And then with slide and divide, you just have to remember, if there's variables at the end as well, like this one has a y squared at the end, you have to put a y after both of these. And that's your final answer for that one. All right, for the next one, I asked myself, does it have a GCF? And this does. The GCF is y. So I have 6x squared minus 11x minus 2. All right, so if you want to do trial and error, that's fine, and I can help you individually if you choose to do so, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to talk about slide and divide. So I take the first number, 6, and I multiply by the last number, -2. So -12 is up top. Then I put the middle number down bottom. I use my calculator, and I figure out what multiplies to -12 and adds to -11. And what I get when I do that is -12 and 1. I put them in parentheses. So x minus 12, x plus 1. I put the GCF out front. I don't need any other variables in there because there's no variable behind that 2 right there. So now this one's a little bit different because of this 6 out front. So since there's this 6 out front, we do need to do an additional step. If you're looking back at these other problems, there was only a 1 left out front of both of these. And so this one's different because there's that 6 left out front. Since there's that 6 there, I divide both of these numbers by 6. So when I divide this first one, 12 divided by 6, 12 divided by 6 is 2. This next one, 1 divided by 6, that is not so nice. So I go to my calculator. And I do 1 divided by 6. I hit enter. I get a decimal, and then I hit math, enter. I get 1 divided by 6, so I slide the 6 out front of the x, and I keep the 1 in the same position. So this will be 6x plus 1. So all I'm doing is sliding that out front. I have 6x plus 1, and I keep the GCF out front, and that's my final answer. So for the next one, I look for a GCF. It does have a GCF. The GCF is 2. I divide everything by 2, 12x squared plus x minus 20. I now no longer need that first problem. So then I need to do my slide and divide. So I take the first number, which is 12. I multiply by the last number, -20. So 12 times -20 is a big number. It's -240. And then I put the middle number down bottom. So the 1. So I use my calculator and I figure out the two numbers. And the two numbers are 16 and -15. I put them in the parentheses. I put the GCF out front. I'm not done with this one though because I have this 12 right here. So I divide both of these by 12. So neither of those are divisible by 12, so I take my calculator. And I do 16 divided by 12. I get a decimal, then I hit math, enter, enter, and I get 4/3. So this one, the fraction reduced, and so I'm going to slide the denominator still, but I'm going to slide the denominator of the reduced fraction. So it will be 3 will slide in front of the x, and the 4 will stay. So this will be 3x plus 4. So again, this reduced to 4/3, and I slide the 3. This will be 3x plus 4. I'm going to do the same thing with the 15/12. 15 divided by 12. Math, enter, enter. I get 5/4, so I slide the 4, I keep the 5. So this one would be 4x, and then since there's a minus, it would be minus 5. And keep the GCF out front always, and that's your final answer for that one. All right, the last one. It also has a GCF. So the GCF of this one is b. So I have a squared plus 3a minus 28. I ignore that original problem now. So I now need to multiply the first number times the last number for the x. So 1 times negative 28. So negative 28 up top and 3 down bottom. I use my calculator and I figure out the magic combo. And the magic combo in this case is 7 and negative 4. I put them in the parentheses. I have a plus 7, a minus 4 with my GCF out front. And this one I am done. And again, the reason why I am done is because there's a 1 left in front of those, and these two had numbers in front, but that has a 1. So that's my final answer.